Against the Ropes podcast.
Orozco's foundation seems to be totally gone, and this fight is over. The homecoming, a rousing success for Vergil Ortiz Jr.
Ortiz Jr.
Was forced to relent tonight.
All right, let's get started.
The end comes to you at 2 minutes 16 seconds in round number 6 as our championship referee Mark Alloy comes in and puts a halt to this contest. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for your winner by KO, still undefeated and new WBA Gold Welterweight Champion, the Fighting Pride of Grand Prairie, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, the phenomenal Vergil Ortiz Jr.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Against the Ropes. I am Gio Garcia. I am alongside Christian Mosqueda for episode number 50.
50,
50, man.
Damn,
50.
big 5-0. At 5-0, a big number in boxing, right? 5-0?
5-0.
5-0.
Hashtag 50.
50 or 50? Man, dude.
Shout out to John Pascal, too.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
We posted a clip on Instagram, and he saw it, and he liked it.
That's what's cool, man. He's having fun with it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that. But, I mean, you have fun with it. You put it on the gram. Man, you become a likable person.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think you had an interview with David Benavides, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things he said. I want to turn the casual fan into a real boxing fan,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're listening or watching the Vergil Ortiz knockout. You want to give quick reactions because we do have a lot to talk about today.
All right, like quick reactions on Vergil, man. He just pretty much cemented what we saw at RGBA when we went to visit him on the work ethic that he puts in that square circle. He showed on that night, and just impressive. I knew he was a little hard on himself, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Really?
Yeah, he was a little hard on himself.
Huh.
Post interview, we'll talk a little bit about that. But dude, I thought he looked excellent in there. Like seeing that 6th round, how he turned up to a different gear and did what he did to Relentless, man. Just it seems right now like the sky's the limit. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is for this kid because we seen how composed he is inside the ring as well as
Yeah.
outside.
No, same here. I think last week we were talking about it, right? And we were saying that it's going to be a tough fight. That,
Yeah.
you know, Lily and I said that it would go past the 5th. We believed.
Mm-hmm.
But it went to the 6th round, man. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I think we will have time to elaborate a little more on that because we are going to have a call-in, right, or a phone interview, whatever you want to call it. Have we told the people who's...
We've mentioned it on the gram.
All right.
For those.
You guys better be following us at againstdaropes on Instagram.
Yep.
So who are we going to have on the line? Let the people know.
We're going to have a former middleweight champ. Goes by the moniker The Ghost. He's now retired, but what he did in the ring, the names that he fought, big names. He was in the ring with likes of Hall of Famers like Bernard Hopkins.
Antonio Tarver,
Yeah.
Sergio Martinez.
Jermain Taylor, Marco Antonio Rubio. He's been in there with some big names. And so
Wait, did I say?
I think you said Antonio Tarver.
Oh, I meant Jermain Taylor.
Yeah, so now he's been in there with some big names. And yeah, so we're going to have The Ghost.
Yeah, I think
Kelly
at one point he
Pavlik.
was the man.
He-
at
oh,
the
no, yeah.
160, man. He was because he was always big physically and
Yeah.
he had skill, man.
Long arms.
Yeah.
He was the boogeyman in a minute, like for a minute or two.
Yeah, do you want to... What else are we going to talk about? Let the listeners know while I get Kelly Pavlik on the
problem.
line.
We are going to talk about the press conference that we attended, which was
Yes.
the unification welterweight battle between Sean Showtime Porter versus Errol the Truth Spence Jr.
Mhm.
And on that, we know that as a stacked undercard. So we also have David Benavides versus Anthony Durrell. So there was some words exchanged there. It's a stacked undercard with John Molina Jr. He's always fan friendly style going against the equally impressive in style Josecito Lopez. And we also saw another ghost at that press conference with Robert
other
Guerrero.
one.
in attendance. And
Looks a little rejuvenated, right?
he does, and we did an interview with him and his dad. You know, those guys are always animated. You know, good people. They had some stories for us.
Yeah, and you guys can check that out on Against the Ropes podcast on YouTube if you haven't checked it out already. But pretty good stuff, and more stuff coming up too.
Yes, and and we'll also talk about that Andy Ruiz little announcement that he made on his live about not being happy with Saudi Arabia. And if people who have been following have noticed that Andy Ruiz has not been promoting to Saudi Arabia on his Instagram, so he went to live and he made a little announcement, which we will tackle on and talk about. So yeah, a lot of stuff to talk about. Again, also some news with Ryan Garcia, who he celebrated his 21st birthday, and so some people called out his name on that Vergil Ortiz undercard. So we'll talk a little bit about the man that called them out. So yeah, and I think we're ready, right? We have him on the line.
We do have Mr. Kelly Pavlik on the line. You want to
All
go
right.
ahead and introduce him?
I'm gonna introduce the one and only Kelly the Ghost Pavlik. Kelly, thanks for being on.
Man, just keep doing the podcast, bro.
Hey, thanks for being on here with us. Huge fans of what you did in the sport, what you continue to do outside. So let's get into it. Kelly, I know you have a podcast yourself.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little about that podcast, Punchline?
Yeah, it's the Punchline with Kelly Pavlik and James Dominguez. And, you can finally go to punchline.live, and that goes to our website, and you can subscribe to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram through there. And it has all of our archives and, past shows and everything. So it's fun. Along with everything else I got going on, it's just being busy as hell.
Yeah, So Kelly, when did this idea of starting a podcast? We also started one a little over almost a year now to the date. But when did you realize that you wanted to start a podcast?
Actually, my co-host, James Dominguez, one night we were sitting there, and I didn't have as much stuff going on then. And he was like, yeah, man, we should do a podcast. And, we sat down and went through it, and we didn't expect it really at all to kind of like take off the way it did. It was kind of more so, he's real big with the social media. I mean, he's on Facebook, all the time. And he has a good amount of followers on Facebook, and, same here. So we kind of just threw it together, and then, our format going into it was kind of different that we thought, like most of it is towards the listeners, and we go and we're unscripted and unedited, which you can pick up a lot of that throughout the show. But we interact with the format is for the listeners, and how like a lot of podcast people talk, or even radio shows, you get to hear people talk all the time, and you have an opinion or you'll disagree with them, but you can't really say anything, or you go to call in, or they don't have any no call-ins. As well as everything that we do is answering. So like when you first see it and watch it, it looks kind of tacky and it looks really low budget because our heads are down on the phones. But what we're doing is reading off all the questions and answers to everybody's questions and their opinions too. So that's pretty cool. Like it's just nonstop interacting with the listeners. And the funny part about it is we've had Mikey Garcia, Terrence Crawford.
Yes.
You name it, there are a lot of big guests on there, and actually the listeners get pissed off when we have big guests like that because we're not answering their questions. So, it's crazy how that goes, but it's fun. It really is. It's a little different.
Yeah, that's something that probably they don't understand, because you're getting caught up in that conversation with the Mikeys and with the Terrence, and we see these questions coming in, right? They're just coming in, so you can't answer all of them. Yeah.
Mikey either. We're talking with Terrence Crawford, and it's funny. I love our listeners, but we're talking with Terrence Crawford, and people are asking about Tyson Fury versus Wilder, and all things like that. So it's they're not even paying attention to the interview.
Yeah. So Kelly, you've been in the ring with some big names. We were just talking about how you destroyed Jermain Taylor, on 2 outings. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Looking back at your career, how was your mindset going into that fight?
It was kind of cool, I guess, the way to put it. And it was frustrating too. It was just like a whole bunch of different feelings involved in one. For most of my career, it took me 7 years, and I had to make a name. By no means am I crying or complaining, but I'm just really speaking the truth on it. We came up and we were just taking care of everybody. I believe at one point I was 14-0 with 14 KOs, and then I ended up being like 21-0 with 20 knockouts or somewhere around that. Anyways, long story short, was just dismantling fighters and dangerous fighters. Even when I fought for the NABF title, I fought a guy by the name of Fernando Zuniga, who was signed by Top Rank.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously you can fight if you're signed by Top Rank. He was 17-1, but 16 knockouts. So there was a guy I fought that a lot of people didn't want to fight, especially at the time when I fought him. And we just had a long road, and we still couldn't get no breaks. I mean, here and there we were kind of like swing butts on ESPN too. And most of the guys were getting big shots that, that I fought in the Olympic trials with or on the Olympic team and getting world titles in 2005. And here, 7 years later, for me, I had to break through with tough, rugged Jose Luis Artucci, another one that a lot of prospects weren't fighting or taking a chance with. I beat him. I fought Edison Moran, and actually Artucci was for the WBC Eliminator mandatory. So after I beat Artucci, I'm thinking my next fight is against Jermain Taylor. And then I got a phone call 2 days later going, "Hey, Cal," from my agent. He goes, "Yeah, good win, but you got to fight Edison Moran next." So I fought 2 WBC Eliminators. I just launched the most career fighter in boxing at that point. And then, finally we had the opportunity with Jermain.
And that was
huge.
Those were 2 fights in 2007, right before you finally met Jermain Taylor later that year in September.
It was Artucci and Miranda.
And up until that point, Jermain Taylor, he was the WBC champion at the time. You fought this fight in Atlanta City Hall. Tell me a little bit about taking those first steps, climbing up that ring, and you knew that this was your chance to become a world champion.
Yeah, like all the work, as I was mentioning, 7 years that it took to get those opportunities and that break. And, in boxing, that window is only open for a short period of time. And, that was all going through my head. The nerves, everything is crazy how fast the brain works. But, everything was going through there, and I was just, trying to go over the game plan and what we worked on in training. But for the most part, the nerves takes over, and you just kind of you're soaking it up, but at the same time, you're just trying to keep your composure as much as possible. And, you're going into that. But once that first bell rings, it's all business and everything's gone, and then everything slows down a little bit. So,
are there ever moments where that doubt creeps in? Because we're all human, we all have fears. Does that ever happen where you start to self-doubt or those fears creep in, and what do you do to combat those and to minimize those things?
Absolutely. I could tell you this right now, and most people will tell me, as always, they say I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I can guarantee you that 99% of fighters, when they have those, they think about the worst things that could happen. Because it's not that they're not human. And so if any fighter ever says that, I don't believe them. I think they're full of shit. And that's just being honest. Yeah, I did. You play, especially like the night before. Usually it's crazy. For me, I was laying out the entire fight. And I was just picturing, everything. Like the smell of the gloves getting hit, the reaction, how you're breaking down from what I watched on film with this guy. And then, of course, you get the negatives of like what could happen? What's the worst that could happen? You start thinking like, man, what if I wake up and I get to the locker room and I got to ask who won? You know what I mean? I start thinking like all those, or if he catches me, you think about that. You do have to put that. I think that you should. I think that you need to humble yourself and be realistic, because it's boxing and that can happen no matter who you are. And for an example, Jermain Taylor, the first fight, I got dropped in the second round.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get dropped. I mean, a couple years later down the line, that made the fight what it was, and one of the top middleweight fights of all time. But for like a couple weeks after, I don't want to talk about it or brag about getting off the canvas to knock Jermain out. I wanted to stick my chest out and say, I didn't get knocked out, and I beat him.
Mm-hmm.
So that shit happens in a fight. You know what I mean? Like, you get dropped and you got it, so you have to play those. But I got up to go on to win the world title, and you know that's the way it goes. And sometimes, you know, maybe I don't know if it was the case, but preparing myself for situations like that. You know, a couple days before, the night before, in the locker room, who knows?
Mm-hmm. That moment when you get dropped, how hurt are you, and how long does it take to get your bearings to get back into this world championship fight?
Yeah, that's a good question. Being hurt, I wasn't hurt, like, I wasn't foggy. You know, sometimes there's different knockdowns, and mine was equilibrium, and equilibrium takes the legs away, the balance, and, you know, that was definitely it. Like, when I got dropped, I could hear everybody screaming. I could actually pinpoint who was saying something. So I was there. It was just like my legs were gone. You know, they were all over the place. A lot of people talk about the fight being stopped, but, you know, Steve Smoker clearly stated in the locker room, if you could show me that you know what you're doing in there and you're trying to hold on, or you're doing something to grab and keep yourself protected, I'm not going to stop the fight. Now, granted, I flopped around one time in there, like, you know, balance and everything. But if you go back and watch the fight, you know, I turn around, I grab him, I bear hug him, and then even from there, I start hitting the body. I'm throwing punches during the clinch. So yeah, mentally I was there. It was just the legs were gone. But after the second round, I went back to the corner, and my trainer was hollering at me, and I'm like, you know, giggling and laughing and telling him I'm all right. When I went out there in the third round, I think I threw 98 or 99 punches in the third round. But I knew halfway through that round that I had that fight won. It was almost like I, you know, zapped the soul out of him because of the amount of punches I was throwing after he just spent all that energy and he didn't knock me out.
Yeah, and in the seventh round, you're not normally known for speed, but you're known for your length and your power. In that seventh round, you deliver a barrage of punches that becomes a highlight reel when you knock out Jermain Taylor. Tell me that moment and the feeling right after you're announced as the winner.
Yeah, you know, they say I'm not known for the speed, but you have to have the speed to hit somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you know, I hit him. I knew he was hurt. I could see the twitch, you know, in his chest. And when he went back into the corner, I just knew I hit him with a shot. And he was hurt. And then I hit him with a hook that when you watch the replay, it's hard to see. But I remember it live, actually, hitting him with that. And I just seen him, you know, slope it to the corner and go down. And you know, it's, again, another situation where it's just crazy, like everything that goes through the head and how fast it's going. You're excited. You know you're happy. But you really don't know what the hell you're happy about. You know what I mean? Because it's like it has not sunk in, and you don't know exactly what you just accomplished. And it's crazy. And it didn't take me till, months later. I bought past my mantle with the trophies and the world titles and the everything up there, and you know, you still don't grasp what you did until after a period of time. Yeah.
So after that, you defeat him once again. And you're on a high, but as we know, the sport of boxing, there's highs and there's lows. Your next opponent, you take care of business with Gary Lockett, and then you have this chance to fight a future Hall of Famer and Bernard Hopkins, a fight that you were heavily favored. A lot of people thought Bernard was over the hill. And so can you tell me a little bit about how it was facing Bernard Hopkins and what you learned from this experience?
Yeah, you know, the Hopkins fight was a fight that we were kind of in a tough situation. You know, I believe the Paul Williams fight that we were in negotiations with fell through. And you know, obviously I wanted the Paul Williams fight. I love Paul. I thought he was a great fighter. But I wanted to fight a guy like him coming up who really wasn't a big power puncher and coming up from a lower weight class. I would have loved that fight. He threw a lot of punches, but so did I, and I had power. And that fight fell through, and I know that I just came on fighting Gary Lockett, and if I would have fought another Gary Lockett type opponent, I would have really took a lashing from, you know, the fans and the media and everything else. We were kind of in a pickle on that, and the opportunity, you know, they threw out Bernard Hopkins. And no matter what, I said I gotta fight him. And in my mind, I'm saying to keep the respect and everything, I gotta fight Bernard Hopkins, even 2 weight classes above. You know, in which we did fight. And you know, it wasn't my night. I mean, there's a lot of city things that were going on and stuff. You know, as far as health wise, being sick and everything. But I never said anything because the only thing that does is just bring people to come down and say, excuse. But Thomas Hauser, who's a notorious writer, worked with New York Times, and he's really straightforward. He wrote a book on it. He was in a locker room before the fight. But you know, overall, to fight a guy like Bernard Hopkins, he is everything they say they are. I mean, he's smart. He knows everything. Everything he does is because he has a game plan behind it. Every jab, every move, the way he moves around the ring. You know, I told somebody on my podcast actually that everybody thinks the best footwork, you got to be flashy. They think you got to be like Pernell Whitaker or the late great Pernell Whitaker or guys like that. And sometimes a lot of these guys make great moves, but they're out of position. You get guys like Mike Garcia, Bernard Hopkins. Bernard didn't, he wasn't flashy with his feet, but Bernard had great footwork because inches and angles. He'd make that one step, that one move at the right time to deflate your punch or to get himself in position or to step in and grab you or frustrate you. He definitely is a tactician in that ring. So
Nice. All right, Kelly, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Gio Garcia, who has a couple questions for you as well.
Yeah, so just continuing on from that, after that you fight Marco Antonio Rubio, right, and Miguel Espino at your hometown, right, Youngstown, Ohio.
Shout out, Youngstown.
Yeah, shout out to all the people from Ohio. How is that? Let me start off with that. How is that fighting in your hometown in front of your people?
That was awesome, especially the Rubio. I mean, we did a split review with Miguel Cotto. And, I think that was one of the first time or second time that was done where Miguel Cotto fought in New York and I was in Youngstown. And it was cool. And Rubio, dangerous opponent. Really wasn't a top guy until after I beat him. He went on a huge winning streak and knocked out Lemieux and I believe he won a world title. But that was a dangerous fight to take out of there in front of the hometown crowd, especially coming off a loss. And, we came in, we shined, and that fight was actually, I made that a really easy fight. And then, Espino was another one because at that point, Espino came in, there wasn't other options out there either, and we wanted to stay active, after that. And it looked great against Rubio. So we stayed in and went against Espino. He was a durable opponent. I wouldn't say he was one of the top guys to fight at the time. And then we went to the Martinez fight. So, and, the Martinez fight, that was another issue of if you could go back and do it over again, yeah, I probably would have. I probably would have came in the pound heavy. Everybody else does it anymore. So,
yeah.
And then, it was my last fight at middleweight anyways, so strip me of the belts. What do I care? That fight came down. That was a fight that what we did to try to make weight. I mean, even the announcers or commentators mentioned during the fight, about my weight issues and the stationary bikes and stuff like that in the hotel room. And, but again, I didn't talk too much on that. I didn't bring it up too much because at that point, especially during the career, you take a lashing for that. I can talk about it now because I've been retired 7 years and I'm probably not ever going to fight again. So it don't matter now. But, I could go back and say, like, I'm not disappointed or pissed off with my career. I mean, I had 2 losses with 40 wins, and 2 of the losses were two all-time greats. Mm-hmm. And there's no shame in that. And I could honestly say that I was not even at 80% Kelly that night in the ring. But I don't take anything away from Bernard or Sergio. Them guys are unbelievable fighters, and Bernard probably, in my opinion, the best middleweight of all time. And so there's no, I have no shame in it. So.
No, definitely, yeah. I wanted to ask specifically about the Sergio Martinez fight. And I hate to say it because you're on the phone, but I think he was my favorite boxer at the time.
That's cool. Hey, my good friend Roger Romo, that was his favorite too.
Yeah.
So I went out to California and became real close with Roger Romo. Fernando Vargas' little brother.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, the first half of the fight, it seemed like you were a little too much for him. You were overpowering him. You had a size, you know, the size difference there. It just seemed like your skill and your power was a little too much. But it seemed like he just caught a second win in that second half. And it's one of my favorite boxing fights of all time. So can you talk a little bit about? You talked a little bit about what happened before, right? So can you just elaborate on that, and then can you talk about what happened, you know, before, during, and then after that fight against Sergio Martinez?
Yeah, you know, that fight started off. The beginning of the fight, you know, he was up. He was moving. I would say the first 2 rounds, I think he won. Some people say the third round. You know, and I was just paying attention and trying to just fill him out. I don't think he tired in the middle rounds. I think because we know Sergio Martinez is in great shape, so he wasn't going to tire. Probably if he was, it would have been around the 7th, 8th round. But I just caught on quick to his style. I mean, it was the size. Yes, it was me making the moves, you know, cutting off the ring. And people say I couldn't cut off the ring, but obviously I showed that I could. You know, I dropped him. I thought all this time that was just a quick little off-balance punch. But from what Sergio, I guess he just doesn't really talking about it. You know, my tire that he was hurt. He told Roger Romo that he was definitely hurt. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. But no matter what, I was ahead. I was up on the scorecard. And then I believe it was the 9th round. A lot of people blamed the cut man and my cut, you know, on why I got beaten that last round. I could honestly, those last couple rounds, and I could honestly come on and say that if I was cut or not, that I was going to lose those last couple rounds. Wow. I hit the wall. That's why I got cut so bad, and that's why the bleeding was so bad from the dehydration and rehydration. The whole thing behind it was bad. Yeah, and that 9th round, you know, I missed with the punch, and I was just kind of like stuck. And he just flicked out a little jab, and that's when it cut me. But no, there was nothing I could have done. I was not tired like young guys, you know. My breathing, that wasn't the issue. It was just like quicksand, and you know, and he capitalized on it. So that's another thing with you know, even Hopkins and Sergio. I mean, there's situations where I was ahead enough, and if I could have won one more round or 2 more rounds. That's a close fight. I still had that Sergio Martinez fight, fairly close. Yeah. But you know, he definitely won, and he beat the snot out of me the last couple rounds. But and Bernard beat the snot out of me for 12 rounds. But you know, it's that was the situation. So yeah, even with the cut, there was nothing I could do in the later rounds. Like I said, I hit the wall, and he capitalized on that. And I think in that fight, you know, like I said, if I just vacated and said, you know what, ship me, whatever, you know, I think that 1 pound or 1.5 pounds, if I came in, I think that makes a big difference because you're talking about a matter of being dried out and dehydrated for a whole day, and you're talking about 6-7 hours trying to get those last 3 or 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds off. That makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, like I said, that was one of my favorite fights. I can watch it over and over. You know, I think you gained the respect of a lot of fans, even though, you know, you lost the fight. But like you said, it was a close fight. But what happens after that fight? What do you just got your second loss? What do you tell yourself?
Nothing. You know, people ruined me. You know, and it didn't, because like I said, I came back and not only beat a rugged, tough Rubio, who went on, you know, to show, you know, his worth a couple years after. Yeah, so it wasn't the fact that I would have went to the Rubio fight show. I would have went to all these other fights. I would have got whitewashed by Sergio Martinez if that was the case. It didn't. You know, I didn't get dropped. I didn't get hurt bad in none of them fights. You know what I mean? Buckled or anything. After the Martinez fight, it was kind of like I always knew why I lost. You know what I mean? I think it would have actually been worse. You know, sometimes people say if you go in and give it your all and you lose, you won't feel as bad. If I would have went in and gave it my all and lost, I probably would have felt worse. Like, damn, he's better than me. You know, and because nobody likes that. And I know the whole thing. I knew if I was 90%, the fights are totally different. I mean, you're talking about a big difference in the fights. So that wasn't it, you know. But after the Martinez fight, I went in, we went back up because of the weight issue, went up to and fought Alfonso Lopez at, 170 and a catch weight. And went into that fight, wasn't really prepared, didn't find out who I was really fighting. Didn't even know what we were fighting at 170. It was kind of like a quick throw together fight. And then after that, that's where the issues hit with at home. So from there, we made the move with Robert Garcia.
Yeah. So no, I think it's refreshing to listen to that, because a lot of guys make excuses, right? A lot of guys say, "Oh, it was a close fight. I thought I won," but I think you're able to say, "I know why I lost, and I know I possibly wasn't."
I don't have to be delusional to think that I won, either one of them fights. Again, like I said, Martinez, gave him. I think he won by 3 rounds, which is a good amount. Still, it's definitely clearly he won, but it was closer, obviously, than the Hopkins fight too. So. It's. But you have to, like I said, and I did beat myself. Everybody thought I did. I did beat myself up over it. The switch with Garcia. That really came down to, that was a lot with Top Rank. Top Rank really wanted that. Top Rank wanted me. They wanted me gone from the beginning of my career. And I fought to beat my trainer Jack, and 2001, 2005, they set me out there to resign with them, and try to talk me into a new trainer, and Top Rank's a phenomenal promotional group. I'm glad I stayed with them, and I was with Top Rank. But the move with Garcia was at that point of the career, like you're getting older, fought the top guys. We know what you need to work on, and so how Top Rank thought is like, if you don't try to do some change, this is what's going to keep happening. Or we're going to be done with you. And it kind of came down to a point of they were going to probably freeze me if I didn't make the move. So we did. And then there was a couple things, I canceled the fight in Youngstown. And a lot of people, the first assumption on that is, he's out and he's crazy. He's out there ragging. He's doing this, he's doing that. And that wasn't the case. The case on that was, there was a fight being made. I was supposed to fight back in Youngstown again. And, they were putting me in against a guy by the name of Daryl Cunningham. And the fight for training camp started, and usually at the beginning of training camp, I had a fight contract. Well, long story short, we get all the way up to like 3 weeks before the fight. Here, my trainer is promoting the card with Top Rank, and his kid is doing programs, this, that. And people can lie all they want, but, we know the truth. Me, my agent, Cameron Duncan, my dad. And I didn't get the fight contract till like a week and a half before the fight. And the amount of that I was getting paid was really a smack in the face. And my trainer, nobody told me about the fight contract, and feared that I would back out of the fight, and they would lose out on the promotional part and things like that. So that was, the reason. And I take me and Jack, I love Jack. Me and him had such a great career together in a long run. And I think Jack's a great guy, and I can understand the points for him there, if we make a couple extra bucks. But I think it was more so just the way it all unfolded, and I didn't find out. But of course, I was, I took the beating for it, the lashing for it, and as where any other fighter would have done the same thing. I wasn't an opponent. I was a guy who only had 2 losses, and they were to Sergio Martinez and Bernard Hopkins. And then, people were going to hold out on giving me a fight contract in my hometown. And then the amount that I was getting paid, it was everything behind it. So that was kind of the situation there of why I pulled out of that fight. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was like the big stink and everything that like really hit for a while about me pulling out and canceling the fight so close to the fight. but nobody got the true story of why that happened.
Let me ask you this, Kelly. Do you feel overlooked? Because I feel like at one point you were the man at 160. But for some, like, people don't talk about you like they talk about, let's say, the two guys you mentioned, right? Hopkins or Martinez.
Oh.
Hopkins, obviously, like, probably, like you said, the best middleweight ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel like you're a little bit overlooked?
You broke up there for a little bit. You mean just as far as, like, today, after my career and everything?
Yeah, do you feel like you're overlooked in those terms? Like, because you were the man at one point at 160.
Yeah.
But maybe you didn't have that notoriety, now. A lot of people I feel like don't look back and say, wow, Pavlik was the man, even though you probably were at that time.
No, I absolutely do. And again, my goal, I'm a realistic person. When I turned pro, my goal was to win a world title. And realistically, did I think I was going to win it? I had no idea. I was truly worried about fight to fight. Like one fight at a time. When I won the world title, it was like, damn. But after I won the world title, that was another thing. Retired. Of course, all the stories like, yeah, you retired a little early, and what a wasted career, and you could have done this. And it's almost like people just think that my career started in 2007, when I won the world title, and ended in 2012. No, I started in 2000. I was pro that long. I had 42 pro fights. When I won the world title, I was one of the guys like Robert Garcia who retired really young. And just the person who did not. I started counting down after the title to retirement, where most guys would be counting next big fights. So, as far as my career, I look at it, I don't get the credit from, Miranda now. All these years, 12 years later, he sucked. He was overrated. But, at the time, until I beat him, he was Godzilla. You know what I mean? Jermain Taylor beat Bernard Hopkins twice. And Jermain Taylor had tough fights with very awkward guys. Umar, Winky Wright. Guys that gave everybody fits. And he didn't get beat by him. No matter how bad people want to say, even the Hopkins fights, when he won, people say that Hopkins got robbed. That wasn't a robbery. If you thought Hopkins won, absolutely. You're not crazy for that. But to say he robbed, that was a fight that could have went either way. But Jermain made those fights that close. Winky Wright went in and beat a lot of people. It was only not even a couple years before Jermain fought him. Winky makes people look bad. But Jermain still came out, like you said in the countdown before I fought him. Even though I'm still winning, though. I beat him. That's nothing. I beat, I was the first person to start Bronco McCart. I know it sounds crazy. It's Bronco McCart, but nobody did to Bronco what I did. Just all them guys. Nobody did to Jermain what I did. I was the first to do it. Jermain Taylor went in after being beaten by me like that, beat twice, and fought Carl Froch. And nobody said anything about this, but Jermain's a boxing lesson for 12 rounds. The second fight with me and Jermain, I outboxed him. Jermain goes in a weight class up and in my opinion, so far hit on a scorecard that he could have took another knee. You know what I mean? In that last round and survived. I thought that he would have still won. I had that far hit on the scorecard. So I think that my career to knockouts, people are knocked out. Never get knocked out or stopped. I think it is a little bit overlooked, but again, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I've done well for myself. I haven't had to come back to boxing. I haven't had to throw another punch. I haven't had to punch a time clock. So, I think what I got out of my career, I'm very, very fortunate.
All right, Kelly, this is Christian. Again, Kelly, I have a question. We normally talk about maybe the battles that you have in the ring, but we also know as people we have battles outside the ring. Can you tell me maybe a moment or maybe an obstacle or something that you dealt with outside of the ropes, and tell us a little bit about that and how you deal with that outside of the script?
You're talking about, with like the drinking and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to make no excuse on it. I'm just going to be straight honest. I lived a little too much. You know what I mean? I could admit to that. I went out and had fun. And as far as affecting my career, I don't think it did at all. I'm just being honest. I think if I would have kept going the route that I was going, and if I was fighting, absolutely, you know. But I always did have a cutoff. And I know people are going to say, well, but what you're putting in your body out of training, you know, affects when you get back into training. And it does, but I had to cut off when I hit training camp. I trained my ass off, you know. And you can see every fight. I mean, I think I was a middleweight that averaged, not only my knockout ratio was one of the highest, but punches per round that I threw. But outside, yeah, you got to a point, you know, being in Youngstown, there's a lot of things too on that, you know, the little trouble. And to this day, I just think it was petty shit. Like, you never heard me getting busted with, you know, 70 grams of crack or coke or drugs or even marijuana. You know, you never heard me with like a silly weapon. I mean, let's be honest. I got in trouble for shooting a 41-year-old derelict with a BB gun, a four-wheeler, and a shoving match, mosh pitting at a rock concert with my buddy. You know what I mean? Those were the type of things that I really got in trouble for. If it was anybody else, those would never been news. You know, but again, knowing the situation and the spotlight that I'm in, I think I made bad decisions doing that. And, you know, I do take blame for that. I acted childish, immature, and I let the fun, having fun, I was living like a rock star, more so, you know, and that's what I could say about it. And after I retired, you know, it kind of, that like, the first 3 years, it was still like that. You know, I was still caught up in that lifestyle. And finally, you know, it just took the BB gun incident for me to sit back and say, you know what, this shit's got to change. You know, I got kids. I am retired. I have a good amount of money in the bank where I can live the rest of my life and make investments and do things that I want to do. And I have world titles sitting in my trophy case that not a lot of people say they have. I got beautiful kids. Tell you got to pull your head out of your ass and, you know, become a man now. And that's what I did, you know, for 3.5 years now. And I have gyms now. I got a podcast. I'm running a combine for kids from 5th to 12th grade. We teamed up with Adidas, Papa John's, and we got this local company, a new company, and these combines are going to be great. The boxing gym's going to open in, 2 months. So
nice.
Now I cut the shit and got on track, and becoming a man, like being the world champion and being the person that people want you to be. And there's a lot of pressure with that, and I do have a lot of animosity to this day with that. But same time, that's the way it is, and you got to be that person. I got to be that person for my kids. And it's about that time. So yeah, I did. I had to go with that, and for as much of it that I think was bull crap, it is what it is. But I still put at the end of the day, I still put myself in a lot of situations, and there ain't nobody to blame for that. And I had to, like I said, pull my head out of my ass and get back on track.
Kelly, I saw that on your Instagram you have an anti-bullying a message as your picture. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Where did that come about, and what message are you trying to put out there?
Yeah, that come about. That's bad anymore. And I think the worst is the cyberbullying. I got 2 kids, and my kids I'm the type of dad that when something goes on, I ask what they did first. Like, what do they do? Because every parent, most parents are always like, "Hey, my kid wouldn't do that." But so where that's going is my kids don't have social media. They're 13 and 10. Now, I'm not knocking anybody that lets their kids get on there at that age. In my opinion, though, how I feel is they're too young. Social media is for adults. It truly is, and it's for people that are mature enough to be on there. And I don't think my kids should be subject to some of the shit that's out there, especially in 2019, how crazy the world is right now. So, hey, listen, you want to talk to your friends, you got a phone. I didn't have a phone. I think I stole my brother's pager when I was their age, you know.
Beep,
And
beep.
then, so, like, why do we need social media? It's like you see your friends all summer long. You're going to be in school with them, especially when school starts. The problem is with the cyberbully, back in the day, if you got bullied at school, it happened at school.
Yeah.
And the kids in your classroom knew about it. And eventually you got tired of the shit, you know, you stood up. Today, you know, this kid's friends with 20 kids from this other school that's a couple blocks down the road, and they're friends with a bunch of kids from this other school that's in the same county. So when you get one kid from the school now, it's not the kids in the classroom anymore. It's the entire area, you know, tri-county area or whatnot, and all these people are on there just picking and picking and picking. That's worse, and that's where these kids really get, you know, they're committing suicide or they're just fed up and they had enough. So, yeah, the bully, I think, you know, more kids need to stand up and defend themselves, and more parents have to get involved. Listen, if your kid has social media, that's cool, but don't tell me that you don't check it either because you trust them. If you're going to let your kids have social media, you should be in their shit all the time, checking on who, just because you have crazy people out there, who's inboxing them, who are they inboxing, what are they posting? You know, another thing is with these kids, you put something on that internet, it's on there for life. You know, they don't understand that. So I think the parents really need to get more involved with the kids and social media.
Yeah,
and I think that, you know, somewhere along the line, you got to put it into the bullying.
Yeah, I think you're doing something good with this. Yes, it's a lot of people might think, oh, you're being too controlling, but yeah, now like you said, this day and age with social media, with people expressing their opinions and being able to be at times anonymous.
Yeah, I'm not too controlling with that. You know, like I said, you know, there is, because I agree when you too control, kids build resentment. Like I said, my kids, you know, they don't sit in the house with their hands folded and legs folded like in an upright position. I'm not shit like that. My kids go and have fun all summer long, and they're out and about, and they have sleepovers, and they sleep over, and they're allowed to have phones and do that. Like, I'm not even that strict on bedtime on school nights, and they're on their honor roll all the time. So I'm not too strict, you know what I mean? But when it comes to social media, there's no reason they have to be on it. I don't even put them on. You know, first of all, I don't know a different situation, so I don't want my kids being on social media. But secondly, it's not, you know, if they're not asking me or they don't know, why would I put them on there? You know, it's not fair to them. And because it is brutal. The social media is brutal itself. So yeah, I'm not knocking anybody that lets their kids on there, you know, or lets their kids have social media. I'm just saying, like, if you do let them have it, check it, you know, keep up on them. Like, the one thing my daughter does have, she has that TikTok. And it's a private account, and we still on her, me and her mom, and we just go through it, you know, and make sure, because, you know, you never know. And all this shit would be, you know, come to an end or slow down a lot if more parents got involved on that. Then when something happens, though, you know, then it's the big, you know, outcry and everything.
Yeah, I think kids are just naturally curious, right? Like, especially on the internet, you could find anything. I think a lot of times kids are just curious and find things that they may not want to find, too.
Exactly. And it is crazy. Like, my kids, a lot of, you know, they go to YouTube and they watch just good things on YouTube, but even then, you know, it's you still got to kind of control that, because what are you watching on there?
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Yeah, I say we go back to the flip phone days, right? We just have that flip phone, no social media.
No text messaging.
Yeah. So, Kelly, we're going to do a couple of quick rounds of best you've ever faced. So I'm just going to say a question, and you just throw out a name. So who's the best fighter you've ever faced?
I'm going to have to go ahead and say, again, not my best night, but it's a close one. I'll say between Jermain and Bernard Hopkins.
Awesome. Who's the best defensive fighter you've...
Sergio is a close one.
Sergio.
Best defensive fighter. I know it's going to sound crazy, but that goes to Hopkins.
Hopkins? Okay. Who's the best offensive fighter you ever fought?
I'd have to go ahead and say, I'd definitely have to say Sergio.
Sergio. All right, what was the most fun promotion that you were involved in a bout?
Oh. Now, could I be shit that happened with other people on the card?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I would have to go ahead and say Edison Miranda because he ran his mouth about me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talk about how it's always nice to have that opponent that helps you sell that fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
And motivate you along the way.
Exactly.
All right, what was the fight that was never made that you wish would have been made?
Oh, man. I would have liked Paul Williams. I would have liked Arthur Abraham.
Yeah.
But I would probably say, I would say to Andre Ward.
Andre Ward, yes.
Because I was supposed to fight him,
Yeah.
and that was one of the big reasons behind retiring. It was my last fight. There was talks to me, we were in negotiation to fight, and the contracts were getting ready to be signed, and Andre Ward, that's when he hurt his shoulder, and he had to get surgery, and then there was nobody else really for me to fight, and he worked, you know what I mean, because Super 6 was still going on. I was campaigning at 68, but, a guy like Andre, I think he's another one that you could honestly put up there in the top 10. I mean, just the things that he done, and, if I thought I would have won or lose, you want to fight the guys like Andre Ward in your career.
Yeah, we actually had those two questions sent into our Instagram. They asked us to ask you, how do you think a fight with Andre Ward would have turned out in your opinion, and how a fight with Paul Williams would have turned out, and your thoughts?
Paul Williams, again, I respect Paul Williams to death, but I think that I would have been too much for Paul Williams. I don't think that he would have had, even his punch out rate, that was the biggest thing he had, but mine was every bit as much. I was a knockout puncher, strong, and Paul Williams didn't have anything that would have kept me off of him. So I definitely think that I would have, if anything, I would have wore him down in the later rounds and probably stopped him.
Nice.
Martinez moment?
What's that?
A Martinez moment against Paul Williams?
Oh, honestly, I think it could have happened. I think for a fact, if Martinez did to him what he did, and I know it was a crazy punch, but I definitely would have in the later rounds.
Nice.
Andre Ward, on the other hand, you got to be realistic. He was a bigger guy who fought at higher weight classes. He was sharp. He was a great fighter, and I don't know about that fight. To be honest with you, I'm not one of them guys that say I would beat him. Realistic. I bet you, I could tell you this, that would have been a fight.
Yeah.
We had one.
Yeah.
We had another question on Instagram from Mr. Alex Fernandez. Shout out to him. He was asking your favorite fight.
Favorite fight, I would have to say, would have been the Miranda. It was probably the most painful too. Because he did hit. He hit everything. He lived up to everything that his reputation was at the time, and he hit you with a jab. He carried that punch for a couple rounds. But it was fun because of how I fought him and how I pushed him back, and just the way that fight went, I would say it was the funnest. And Bronco McClellan was fun because I had fun in that fight.
Nice.
Any other nice questions?
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly, honestly, you can always say, you've never. I think about that Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta scene where he says, like, you didn't knock me out, Ray. You can say that no one ever took you out. You're tough as they come. Out of Youngstown, not a whole lot of big name athletes come out of there, but you rep that your Youngstown, Ohio town with a lot of pride, and people that may not remember you, we do acknowledge like how you changed the sport, and so my question is, was there a lot of pressure, maybe being in the sport where it's probably most favorable to other races? Did you ever have that pressure of being the white hope?
Yeah, and and believe it or not, it's true. It's the, what do you call it, reverse or whatever you want to stereotype or whatever. I remember the guy with HBO, I think at the time it was Greenberg or something like that, who was running it. And, you know, my agent goes, why can't, this is 2006, he goes, why can't we get my guy on the big, you know, big networks and premium television? And he literally came out, he goes, because we don't invest from white guys from the Midwest. That was word for word what he said.
Wow.
They don't, you know, they don't invest, they don't have. In other words, they're not that good. And that right there, so the pressure did come, you know, especially hometown. You got that pressure along carrying, you know, a city on your shoulders. And there's always, I'm not the only one, you know, so, you know, almost every fighter, I'm sure, has that pressure, you know, especially when you start getting into the limelight and into the top five and everything else, and you're on television, that pressure's there. Probably more so if you don't have the title, because one loss could set you back, and it's a long road back to the title, getting close to a title shot. But, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I mean, it was, a lot of times it was overwhelming, and some people handle it different than others.
For you, when you became a champion, I saw that you were on the Joe Rogan podcast. You said that your life changed overnight, almost instantly, with that world title. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah, again, small town guy. You know, out of nowhere. You know, you're pretty popular before the fight and everything, but when you win the world title, shit changes, and people tell you, hey, it's going to change overnight, man. And yeah, I know, but you don't know until it happens. And yeah, it was just crazy. People just come to your house, they don't care. You know, they come to your house. I was at my parents' house because they wanted to be at my house because of that. And they just knock on their door, you know, and hey, have them come out. We want to see them. You know, there was just like, you go eat. It's not bad. I mean, it's, you know, you're big time now. People want that, but I'd be with my family eating, and I'd have grease from chicken wings on my fingertips, and people ask for autographs, and I'm handing them, and they got to peel it off my fingertips. You know, there's just a lot. You get called on for a lot of things, and it was hard, you know, going to see sick kids. I remember one week I had to go see really terminally ill kids, and then I had to go see terminally ill hospice elderly, and I had to go to a handicap school, and I did that all in 1 week. And man, that took a real big pounding on me. But you know, and I love doing it though. I've always contributed to charities, and I have a charitable organization that's going to be out soon. You know, the Kelly Pavlik charitable organization, and you know, so I like doing that. But a lot of things change. Yeah, you know, your friends, that's true too. You know, you get buddies all around you. They all have great ideas, but they need your help and this and that. Everybody wants to ride the coattail, and then when you let go of them or get rid of them, you're the asshole, no good, and then that's the way it goes. So,
what advice do you have for these fighters that are going through these things right now, where they're getting that fame and that attention and that exposure, and all these new people are coming around? What advice do you have for these fighters?
Again, on that, you know, I'll speak on my part. I was fortunate. I had my dad. My dad was there. He was acted as manager, and if it wasn't for him, I probably would have been fighting until 2016 or 17 or 18. You know what I mean? Or I'd probably, God knows where I'd be. But my dad was there to watch and always had the right people there with me for my money. And to this day, that's why I'm able to do the things that I do and that I have. So I had, you know, I guess, long story short, try to surround yourself with somebody that you know is out for your best interest. And, you know, you're going to have friends. And listen, you fight and you train and you literally sweat. They're saying blood, sweat, and tears. Well, for a fighter, it really literally is blood, sweat, and tears. And a lot of people don't understand that, you know. So if they want to go have fun, if they have friends, you know, but just keep an eye on who your friends and watch the motives of these guys too. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing I can suggest. And make sure you have a financial team behind you, and a trustworthy financial team, and that you, whether it's a family member or what, that's close, that watches for the best for you. If you're going to go do pat you up and say, hey, listen, calm it the hell down. You know, don't do this, don't do that. Somebody that's out for the best interest. You don't need the yes people around you.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Kelly, we got to wrap it up soon, but once again, thank you for joining us. We would like for you to call in again. I know there's lots of other things that we could talk about as well, and you could keep us updated on anything and everything that you're doing now with your show. So for those people that are tuning in right now, where can they follow you and where can they follow your show?
Punchline.live is the easiest to get to it. Again, I'll pull you up and you can subscribe either YouTube, Facebook, or you could try to YouTube The Punchline with Kelly Pavlik and James Dominguez. And then I just want to do one more thing if you guys don't mind either. Yeah. I got an app coming out. Me and the kid from Youngstown, Billy Lau, who beat John Duddy and fought for world titles. Billy Lau, who's originally from Youngstown, he has a boxing gym in Naples, Florida. And we're doing a fitness app. And it's for, me and him. So we have a world champion teaching boxing. It's also his wife's a clinical nutritionist, and she's going to have a diet plan, nutrition plan, and recipes. And then his wife's cousin is a fitness guru, and she does the functional strengthening core workouts. So it's a whole fitness program with the diet plan. It's called the Sweet Science Plus. So check that out, guys.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kelly. Any final messages that you like to send out to your fans, people that know that you're going to be on here?
Hey, thank you guys for all the support over the years, and thanks for still supporting and being a fan. I truly appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for having me on your show, and if you guys ever need anything, let me know. So,
thank you, man. We appreciate it. Looking forward to more conversations, and looking forward to watching everything that you do.
Thank you, man. I do appreciate it.
Awesome, Kelly. We're gonna link up your show on our show, so people can just click and go directly to your show, Punchline.
Oh, cool, man.
Awesome.
Right, well, that was Kelly Pavlik. Thank you, Kelly.
All right, thank you, Kelly. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys, man. Have a good one.
Awesome. Blessings, man. All right, that was Kelly the
Pavlik.
Ghost Pavlik.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could have talked about a lot more stuff. A lot of stuff, but we'll have him back on, and we'll definitely ask him a bunch of other things that we weren't able to get to. But
yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot to elaborate on.
Yeah, something that he talked about is, and then the question that I asked him was there pressure, him being of Caucasian, in a sport world where it's dominated by Latinos and other races, and he said that he felt that inverse racism, I guess you can say, where just because he's a white fighter, a lot of people think that he couldn't fight. And of course, you see his record, you see the names on it.
What is it, 40-2? 34 knockouts?
Exactly, lots of knockouts. And he had a entertaining style. Obviously, if you see him, you see his look, you might think he's MMA fighter, but no, this guy could fight.
You know what would have been like a dream matchup if the other guy would have been a little more serious. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. against Kelly Pavlik.
Around that time, yeah.
Dude, that would have been fire.
That would have been fireworks.
Both guys can hit to the body. Mm-hmm. Both guys got power. Both guys can take a punch.
Yep.
That would have been a crazy fight.
It would have been like phone booth season for the 160s, man, for sure.
Yeah. No, but a lot of interesting stuff, and hopefully we get a chance to talk to him again, because like you said, we could have had like a 3-hour combo and just everything, kind of had to cut everything short a little bit, but interesting stuff, man. And going back to that thing, remember when we were talking about Caleb Plant against Mike Lee? I was just intrigued that it was two white guys fighting. Yeah, because I was like, you don't see this very often.
Exactly, right? And that's the thing, we didn't get to ask him like his thoughts on these fighters. The Caleb Plants, the Nikita Bobby.
Nikita Bobby, I like Nikita Bobby.
Nikita Bobby, no,
I like him.
Yeah, I mean his little entrances were a little bit like, oh, okay, but once he gets in the ring, he's all business. He's a fighter, and he's stepping up his quality and opponents as we go, and obviously we're gonna see if he's ready for that. But for sure, Kelly Pavlik has set the standard.
Yeah,
there.
Definitely. So, before him, who else can you remember? An American of European descent who maybe won a title or even became top 5.
Yeah, I'm sure people, if you guys know,
Yeah,
the
let us know.
let us know.
Comments, because I can't remember at the moment.
Because I go back.
American.
Yeah,
right?
American. Because I go back and I think of just like the Rocky Marcianos, like the names that come out, right? And so in the 70s, the 80s were dominated by, the Fabulous Four. And so I'm sure there's some names there, but none stand out the way Kelly Pavlik did in the late 90s, 2000s. And so
I wonder if, but you would think that would help him, right?
You would think.
The fact that the majority of the people in the United States can relate to him, right, in that sense. But he's saying it kind of hurt him. You heard the stuff that they were saying in HBO behind the scenes about him. So that's very interesting stuff, and we love to, have a more in-depth combo.
Yeah, on that.
Somewhere along the line with Kelly Pavlik, man. That was interesting stuff. I'm gonna check out his podcast for sure. I know you talked to me about it a little bit. I'm gonna check it out, see what's up.
Yeah, awesome. So do we have time, Gio, or do we have to wrap it up soon?
We can talk about it a little bit.
About?
You want to talk about what do you want to start with, the fight card from last weekend, or
we could let's talk about the fight card with.
All right, so real quickly.
You already know I'm a fun guy.
Hola amigos, soy Juan Francisco Gallo AtR. Quiero mandar un saludo para mis amigos de Contra las Cuerdas. Échenle muchas ganas. Un abrazo, muchas bendiciones.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. You know what mine is? Let's box, bitches. It's almost fight night.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. You're doing a great job. So thank you and best wishes.
Against the Ropes. Huge shout out to Against the Ropes. Against the Ropes.
Shout out to Against the Ropes. Thank you guys for the interview, and hope to see you guys soon.
Against the Ropes, always doing the right thing.
Shout out to Against the Ropes, man. I appreciate you guys for having me, taking the time on y'all day.
Against the Ropes, #1.
Freddie Roach.
Thank you very much.